Hi again, everybody. I believe this is part 5 of my story, which I feel like is turning into a mini-series. I got up to around November 94. There was an article in the paper in Brisbane here, the Courier Mail, and it was entitled "Church Elders Won't Talk About Sex Case." And this is what prompted my letter I wrote to the governing body, which I have put a link to on my video number 3 for anyone who's interested, and will also be in the book. Basically, it said 6 elders of the Jehovah's Witnesses group refused to obey a magistrate and gave evidence yesterday at a hearing into sex charges against an elderly couple. A man 66 is charged with 24 sexual offences, including incest and sexual assault dating back to the 1960s and involving adolescents. His wife, 62, is charged with carnal knowledge against nature and deprivation of liberty. The Brisbane Magistrates Court committal hearing was told the elders from various Brisbane branches of the religion were alleged to have been present at several meetings involving the couple and their accusers. Robert Quinlan, SM, refused to accept the elders' claim of privilege put forward by each when they were asked to divulge information about the meetings. The court was told the allegations and an admission by one of the defendants were made against the defendants at meetings involving elders in 1972, 1993 and 1994. Now the interesting part to me, apart from this pastoral privilege stuff, is that I knew these people. I had heard little bits about them, but this is when the actual court case came up, and they were from a very well-known JW family. I knew the man's parents. His mum used to play pianos quite often at circuit assemblies, and yeah, so this was a bit disturbing. Then it went on. Barrister Dave Tate told several of the elders that innocent people could be jailed if they refused to answer questions about the alleged meetings. Mr. Tate said he could not adequately test evidence given by 2 people in statements before the court for truth without the elders' answers. Solicitor for the witnesses, Ian Dearden, said the elders, although not ordained ministers, held pastoral responsibilities and were religiously bound not to divulge information given in confidence by church members. Howard Cox, an elder at the Wellington Point congregation, said elders were appointed by the congregation and their responsibilities included helping members with personal and family problems. The other 5 elders were warned by Mr. Quinlan but excused without penalty after refusing to answer questions. The hearing is continuing. So there was this friend of mine I'd known for quite a while. He again was, yeah, I remember that. Anyway, I knew him, and I'd sent him a note because I just wanted to talk to him a bit about this so-called pastoral privilege thing. Anyway, he contacted me, and he was in the area. Gave him her address, and he came there and we had a chat, and he talked to us about this so-called pastoral privilege thing that they said applied. And I've got here, his attitude was the same as I'd gotten from Larry, and also that Jenny had relayed from her brother, who's a CO, that they were pretty much above the law, even if they knew evidence of murder confidentially. Can't believe what I'm hearing. We related quite a bit to Rob Lockwood of Situations, this is my elder friend, we knew of directly and indirectly about elders' lack of understanding and comfort and some of their comments. Forgot my microphone. I'm in trouble. Okay, it's on now. I will get back to where I was. Yeah, we related quite a bit to Rob Lockwood of Situations we knew of directly and indirectly about elders' lack of understanding and comfort and some of their comments that seem unscriptural to us. We never really wavered in sticking up for them, or he never wavered in sticking up for the elders and rationalising. Then he commented that the way he saw it, we had it in for the elders down here. His comment about keeping quiet, perhaps even about a murder, was that the ransom sacrifice covered it. He said that by law, David and Paul should have been put to death for murder they committed. I feel like I'm in a nightmare. Yeah, that was my nightmare increased, all right. Oh dear. So I was really concerned at this time. And I wrote in my notes then, what frightens me is how far the leaven has gone in the organisation. I know a lot of these elders are sincerely following a direction they've been given, but where does it come from? I really would like to know what the governing body's direction is. My personal research till 3 a.m. left no doubt in my mind except for a couple of seeming contradictions, which I've written directly to Brooklyn about. A bit more information from the Watchtower we were doing. While this was all happening, I was concerned that an abused sister who was moving away from the area was going to attempt suicide. As I said, this article appeared in the local paper about the court case. And I'd seen over the years our constant criticism of the Catholic Church, particularly, I've got it here, there's, where is it, April 8th, 1993, the back page of an Awake said, victims of pedophile priests speak out. And it was, again, talking about the problems within the Catholic Church. So with all this happening, I was just scared. And that's when I wrote a letter to the governing body, which is included in my book. And anyone who wants to see it now, there's a link on my, I think it's number 3 video, where I put the links to the letters that letter I wrote, and one that Marie wrote to the governing body, and Dan Sedlick's reply. So if you want to see them, the links are there. But I also then, on my personal story, my mother wrote to me and said, "Our dearest Joanna, I'm writing to acknowledge your letter, but I'm sorry to say I have mislaid your letter I received in Perth. I will continue looking, but in any case, we do not intend to enter into any correspondence on the matter. If there's anything you wish to know, you're welcome to visit at any time. Please give Olivia and Matt our love and let them know they are welcome to visit us whenever they wish. All our love, Mum and Dad." So it goes on. This is what, November 94 still? On the 20th of November. Had to leave halfway through the Watchtower study because Matt was restless and I just couldn't handle the article on elders shepherding with love. Can't take any more hypocrisy. It scared me that I couldn't sit through it. I came home and decided that's it. Will not be part of any more talk about negative things in Jehovah's organisation. Not that I'm denying it. To the contrary, I know how bad things are, but I want to just accept that it's part of prophecy and concentrate more on positive things. It's weird, but it wasn't until the elders kept inferring that our support group was negative that it became that way. All the drama over the way Patricia's case was mishandled and the way my supposedly Christian family have treated me has led to negativity. So now I've decided to tell anyone who comes here that I don't want to hear any negative stuff about elders and the organisation. Jehovah's the only one I trust to do anything about it now. La-di-da. So on and so on, and decided I wouldn't go to that sister's support group anymore, much as it was good. It had gotten to a bit negative, but any wonder with all the rubbish that was going on. Lost it with my poor son again. He couldn't sleep and whinged about his bed, his sheets, his room. Olivia's fairly easygoing, but my darling little Matt just gets too much at times. I'm never satisfied. I know it's the ADD, but it wears thin. Circuit overseer and one of the elders came. Waste of time. Have learned to expect nothing of humans. Please don't desert me, Jehovah. You're all the support I have apart from Marie and Paul. Where would I be without them? So that's where I was at that point. I thought, no more negativity. It's too much. got to do the right thing. And I really did at that stage think it must be just part of the prophecy or something. It was like we did have a watchtower around that time on Ezekiel 34, which talks about bad shepherds. 30th of November, wrote another letter to my parents. While I was writing it, actually, they surprised me with a short visit. After a low spot when I was on holidays, started taking antidepressants again. 3rd of the 12th, 94, first day of our holiday. Came down last night, or afternoon actually, but it felt like night, in the pouring rain, but got here okay. Felt foul on Wednesday, probably because of the reaction to what Marie told me about the new watchtower. I think it was an article on false memory syndrome, and I know there was a lot of fuss about that, and I considered it, but I hadn't really had any ideas planted in me by any counsellor or anything like that. They were just things that I would say when I would relax, or particularly in the bath. So anyway, and hopefully I'd written the last letter to my parents. Still on holidays, windy but the sun's out, kids have walked down to the shops. Put some washing on, the machine leaked on the floor, clothes in a knotted heap. Have to go and ring up the agent or the guy I rented it from. Wish I could get rid of this feeling of being weighted down, which worsens when problems arise, as they regularly do. Example, the washing machine. Yesterday I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Today I feel foul again. Don't want to have to go back on medication, but I did. Again, quote some good magazines, articles that came out. Some comment here from November 1594 Watchtower. Job had become more concerned with his own vindication than God's. More guilt again. Perhaps I've been guilty of that too at times in my battles. Paragraph 10, or page, I'm not sure. Paragraph 10 says, our faith and integrity can be fully proved only if we are tested to the limit. Felt like that. I actually screamed at Jehovah a week or so ago that I can't take any more. Why is he letting all this happen? Paragraph 11 says, when sorely tested, remember that our ever-living God is righteous and will reward us for our faithful activities to his praise. I look forward to that. I'm pretty sure I sound a bit sarcastic when I'm saying some of these things because, as I said, it's what I wrote back then, and this is 20 years ago or more, so... January 195 Watchtower reminds me Satan will use anything against us, physical, emotional, etc. Works on our feelings of worthlessness. Yeah, good old Satan. When I returned from my fortnight's vacation, 2 elders from my new congregation called in to see me, explaining they'd been contacted by the society, who asked them to visit and tell me that my letter had been received, it would be replied to, but it would take time. I never got one, never got an answer. I thanked them for calling, but wasn't inclined to discuss any more of my situation with them. I would imagine info had been passed on from the elders in my previous congregation. I wasn't sure, but in the light of what had happened earlier with elders, I decided I wouldn't bring it up with any other elders, but continue to pray to Jehovah and wait on him for direction or intervention. My health began to improve again. I'd been happy, and then flash, bam, alakazam. January 95, I had a phone call from a sister in my parents' congregation who was quite concerned. She'd been told by me that there were a few problems in the family and I wasn't having any contact with them at the present time. This sister was concerned, though, that there'd been some misunderstanding because my mother had spoken to her at the meeting and told her that I believe my father molested me. This sister said it didn't really sink in at the time, but when she came home, she couldn't stop thinking about it and went around to see my parents and to tell them she thought there'd been some misunderstanding because I'd never said anything like that to her. I talked about abuse with her, and she knew that I suspected my grandfather, but I'd never said anything about my father. Then I told that sister that I had good reason to believe my father may have been involved, and believed that my brothers had a right to know, so that's why I told them. Da-da-da, they broke the confidence and blah, blah, blah. Then I've written here, why on earth would my family have me charged with slander when they themselves are spreading the story to others? Health continued to improve, probably the medication. Really wanted to go witnessing, but don't think I can wear my mask. I'd been a single parent for 6 years when this Jeff guy from New Zealand came into my life. His marriage had broken up and he was a mess. We became friends, and then in time I realised my feelings were stronger. I really didn't want to get married again. I quite liked being on my own, but then on the other hand it got difficult at times, and you'd sort of think it'd be nice to have somebody to help out. Not that I would have got married just for that reason, but yeah, so this is in May 95. I wrote that I hadn't written much for nearly 3 months. One reason being I didn't want to write about my feelings for Jeff that I've been fighting against for about 3 months, because I didn't want Satan to know, because hopefully he couldn't read my thoughts, but if I wrote anything down he could use it against me. I've given up the fight now. The feelings are firmly entrenched in my heart. The most amazing part has been Jeff saying he felt the same way. Still hard to believe. In one way it's easier, but in other ways harder. I'm starting to accept that Jehovah really does want us to be together one day, especially seeing he gave Jeff back the privilege of answering at meetings. As I said, Jeff's marriage had broken up when he was in New Zealand. He had 3 children. That was his second marriage. He had 2 from his first marriage and then 1 from the second. And he'll admit himself that he ran away from his problems at the time. It was pretty difficult. But yeah, so he'd sort of had privilege taken off him, and so excited that he could now answer at meetings. I just wish the feelings could have waited until he was officially free, but maybe there's a good reason it's happened that way. Time will tell. Bit more detail, but I don't want to get too bogged down in this. As I said, if anybody wants to read the whole story, my idea is to either a PDF or an ebook or something when I've finally finished putting it all together. I'm not sure. We went on a bit of a picnic one public holiday that we had. There was myself and Jeff, another family, a couple of other sisters, and another family supposed to come. But yeah, anyway, we had a great day, and we came home. We all had a barbecue tea, and by the end of the day, I was finding it really hard being around Jeff and not being able to hug him or anything. So it's time to go home. I feel guilty if he does hug me or touch me, and miserable if he doesn't. He came to our meeting on Sunday, which really impressed Olivia. She's been very difficult lately in not wanting Jeff around, so we exchanged some sharp words at home after the meeting, and I walked out and went away for a while to let off some steam. Okay, I'll leave my notes for the moment and try and just talk a bit from my recollections of the time. It was really hard, but I really was trying to do the right thing, and so I thought, well, we'll see how we go, and just being in groups and doing things together with other people, and if I can't handle it or whatever, well, I'll just stop. And I did say to Jeff at one stage, look, just stay away until your divorces come through, because I had the guilt over that. And yeah, so it reached that point where I just thought, no, I just can't handle this. It's so I wrote a letter to him
saying, you know, how much I cared about him and everything, and that please stay away until your divorce is through. And I actually arranged to meet him in another elder's presence at this elder's home. And I read the letter to him in front of the elder, so they knew, I guess I was covering my butt, that this is what I was telling him. It was really difficult, and we kept running into each other. It was just amazing. I'd get invited to a barbecue somewhere and he'd be there. Or one day I was going to visit a friend, and there was this car behind me, and it was annoying me. And I thought, what's this idiot behind me doing? And when I looked in the rear vision mirror and I recognised the car, and I thought, it's Jeff. Pulled over and got out, and I said to him, this is hopeless. Why do we keep running into each other? It's just making it hard. Anyway, cut a long story short, as they say. I've got no such thing as a short story, I don't think. My next interesting little note in my journal. June 95, just 6:40 p.m, just rang Jeff. Been fighting the inclination but gave up. Told me to look outside and he'd phone me back after his meeting. More flowers. No one's ever been as sweet to me as he is. I rang him because I thought talking to this man who has these crazy illusions about me might make me feel better, like it usually does. I'll have to wait a couple of hours or so for my fix now. I'm having a hate Joanna day today. I'm being a total klutz and everything's going wrong. I rang Jeff because I just capped my day by causing a fat fire in the kitchen while cooking chips. I'm terrified that one day I'll do or say something wrong and he won't love me anymore. Tim loved me once. What did I do wrong? Have I got my head in the clouds? I feel he's my soulmate. For things to go sour would be devastating. Why can't I ever feel good enough? What if I can't measure up to Jeff's expectations? I couldn't handle another failed relationship. The pain is too great. I don't want to cause Jeff any more pain either. He's had enough. Could we really make a relationship work, or am I setting myself and Jeff up for a big fall? Please, Jehovah, give us a miracle. Nearly every day I think Jeff's going to ring and say it's all a big mistake. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. Then my dad rang me and told me that my mum had had a bit of a stroke and she was in a local hospital, but they thought she'd be okay with a bit of physio. She rang on the Thursday to say she came home on the Tuesday night and was hobbling around with a stick. Kids and I went to visit her when she's in hospital and took some flowers, but I felt dead inside while I was there. Feel that I may need to do some more release letters. Then another interesting thing happened, as they continue to do. Marie rang me about a newspaper article about a book. The article's titled Sins of the Elders. This is Saturday, June 1795. So this person called Vicky J had written a book called Sex in the Sect. This is it. Whoops, knocked the camera, sorry. Yeah, so as soon as I could, I went out and I bought the book and I gobbled it up. And she was exposing sexual abuse that went on in her family. She was also raised a JW. As it turned out, she was someone I'd known for years. As a matter of fact, one of her cousins was married to one of my brothers. Her book told also of how one of the local hotels renamed one of their bars the Elders Bar because some of the elders were there regularly. I remember that, actually. At that time, we had a Friday night meeting, I think, and some of the elders were builders, concreters, and goodness knows what, and I think that's it. It was like the Friday go to the pub after you finish work, and I know a number of occasions, one brother in particular, one or two, would get up to the microphone on a Friday night and they were slurring their words. They really, really sounded like they'd had a few then. Several members of my family also got a mention in the book, not by name, but I recognised them by what was written. And I wrote a letter to the publishers then, asking them, I wrote a letter to her, care of the publishers, and asked if they would forward it to her. Did some more release letters. Gave the situation a lot of thought because Dad came around on our family day. Now, in the witnesses, because we didn't have birthdays, Christmas or anything, we tended to make a big fuss of wedding anniversaries, for one. I couldn't really see that there was that much difference. Like the argument with birthdays, apart from the fact that some people in the Bible got their heads chopped off on a couple of birthdays, it was about putting the person on a pedestal or something to that effect. And I thought, what's the difference between a birthday and an anniversary? You're sort of putting two on a pedestal instead of one. But anyway, so also we had, I think a lot of other families did it too, that made, like when it was your wedding anniversary, oh, I don't know, we did it. We made that what we call family day, and we would exchange presents. We would have a little bit of a celebration and give each other a gift. And my dad came round and gave us 3 envelopes with $10 in each of them. So I wrote him another letter and I told them if they wanted to talk about it, I don't care anymore, and I'd like to build some sort of relationship with them. Dad called in after they got the letter and said he and Mum would like to talk to me. So I arranged to call in their place the next morning around 10, which I did. And after some brief comments from Dad, such as, we want to reassure you, we feel the same about you, you're our daughter, you and the kids are welcome here any time, blah, blah, blah. They asked me if I wanted to discuss anything, and by that stage I said no, and I asked them the same, and they said no. So we went on to safe topics like the kids and the weather and whatever, but at least it broke the ice a bit. And now what? Yeah, I thanked her for the gift, and again, as I said, told him I wanted to try and build up some sort of a relationship. July 95, took Bella the other day, friend, to see a counsellor. This week Logan Home West had the CO visit, quite a few upset by some comments. Lainey called in today upset over remarks from an elder who told her she's still full of hatred, among other things. Jeff came in for a cuppa while Lainey was here and we chatted. He's a mess at the moment, trying to get motivated to write the release letters counsellor have asked him to do. Poor guy, I wish I could be more help to him. Last night we all went 10-pin bowling. That was fun. It will be so good when his divorce is through and we can spend some time together privately. He's really missing his kids at the moment. Maybe he'll be able to get them over here before much longer. Bit more info. My overload button popped again, as I used to say. Every now and then I'd crash. I'm really drained by everyone else's problems again. Try as I may, I can't seem to get away from it. Time I give to others, the kids resent, and I have to put them first. Certain attitudes are rubbing off on them too, which is no good. Please make the world go away. August 95. Today the kids were with Tim. He had fortnightly visits, of course. Olivia came home and wanted to talk to me. She told me she got Tim to drop into Mum and Dad so she could leave a videotape and ask them to tape a program that she wanted to see. She said Tim and Matt were waiting in the car. Tim waved to my parents and said hello, and Mum and Dad went over to the car and got into a conversation. And apparently Tim said, "Have you heard Joanna's got a new boyfriend, Jeff somebody?" And Mum said, "Not Jeff Walters." Wide-mouthed. Dad said, "You mean that Kiwi?" And Mum said, "Well, that's nothing to hold against him," or words to that effect. Tim apparently then said, "I know what she's been saying about you. Fred phoned me." Dad proceeded to tell him that my problem is probably genetic because someone in his family had mental problems, and that's probably where I get it from. I was not happy, to say the least, and once again I thought, that's it, there's no chance of us ever having any sort of relationship. How dare they discuss me like that, not just with my disfellowshipped ex-husband, but in front of my children. And I finally learned that Tim found out from Fred. I wrote to my parents a short note. I had hoped we'd be able to rebuild some sort of relationship, but after your conversation about me with Tim in the presence of my children on Saturday, I can see that this is impossible. Consequently, I must again ask you to not phone or call in here anymore. Then I wrote to Fred, telling him how disappointed I was in his behaviour and the usual thing about revealing confidential talk. Said, you've all done a pretty good job with your smear campaign, so I probably won't waste my time in making any charges. But Jehovah knows the wrong that's been done, and I'll leave it to him to sort out when he's ready. And then I wrote to my parents and la-di-da. Oh, yeah. Just one part of what I said to my parents. On the phone, you said I was wrong about what I said about you in the letters I wrote, but when I asked for specific comments, you couldn't come up with any. You just generalised. I have a specific comment for you. If, as you both said on the phone, you haven't said or inferred to people that I'm mentally unbalanced, why did you say in your letter from Perth, which I have in your own handwriting, that you thought if you stayed away for a while I'd come to my senses, but evidently not? Come to my senses about what? I've asked you before. No reply. Also, why did you say to Olivia some time ago, you don't believe what your mother's saying, do you? It's just her mind's not working properly because of her sickness. One of the elders told me face to face that Dad told him I had discussed things with Bev Richards, and that was the basis of the slander charge Fred and Lionel brought against me. I never spoke to Bev about it. She hardly gives me the time of day. Well, not even the time of day, nothing. She didn't speak to me pretty much since Tim left. She was another one of those ones who rang me and told me it was all my fault. Some of the Loganholme West elders have warned people to stay away from me. Why? And you ask me why I keep upsetting you. Everything I say you deny, even when I have witnesses, so there's really no point in trying to thrash this mess out anymore. It's just one person's word against another's, and as I said, I have to be loyal to my daughter. Please leave us alone. So, October 95, again, no contact with my family. They denied that things went like Olivia said, but I still don't even see why they spoke to Tim. Dad, of course, says I'm an elder. I can talk to a disfellowship person, so can Fred, because he's an elder too. I understand them. Jeff's divorce hearing next Wednesday. Hope everything goes smoothly. Just want to get some sort of order in my life for my kids' sake too, and for Jeff. He deserves a break. I've had a couple of good days this week. Blah, blah, blah. Big step thinking of getting married again, but feel I can't cope on my own any longer anyway. Want a chance to make a happy life with Jeff. Mostly want to just enjoy the simple pleasures of life with him. Being together, sharing our love for Jehovah, serving him together, enjoying music together. Is it really going to happen? Have to have faith. Yeah. Next episode. November 95. Paul and Marie, by this time, had decided that they weren't going to report their field service any longer. And they told the elders, of course, in their congregation. They were then called to the back room. And Marie, at the time, wrote down her thoughts after they'd had that meeting, and she'd sent me a photocopy of what she'd written in her notebook. I've had this stuff for years, and I must have been a reason I kept it. I'll just read a little bit, but this will all be included. My feelings and thoughts of yesterday. This is 6th of November 95. Yesterday we were called into the back room. Paul and I had written a letter saying we could no longer report our field service as long as reporting is used to incite, to motivate by guilt and use comparisons. We no longer live with what we felt on the inside. Something we had been carrying for decades. We can no longer live, I think that's what it was. Something we'd been carrying for decades. There comes a time in one's life when one has to be free to what we really are on the inside, and I feel only an infinitesimal number ever have the courage to do so. From babies we are taught to perform and say the right things to the right people. Anyway, those that want to read it, it will be included with all my stuff at the back of the book. She's got, instead of motivating people by love of Jah, our approval is all conditional. In 99% of cases we are judged by one another on performance. Good brothers and sisters are those that go to all meetings and witnessing. In fact, witnessing has been made the magic faith healer. Just go witnessing. It fixes all sorts of emotional problems. And if you have these problems, well, you probably didn't do enough hours. This is the viewpoint of many. I wonder why we go to doctors. And she says a bit more. As a body of elders, they felt we misapplied the quotes from the Watchtower. I must say they did respect our conscience, but they felt action needed to be taken. We were judged not on the basis of God's word, but were quoted, I think, page 196 of the organisation book, where we are required to report. In refusing to do so, we now have been given the label by the elders of not in good standing in the congregation. Our punishment is this. Paul is not allowed to pray or read any info at meetings, and both of us are not permitted to do demos either. Well, I expected much more, even perhaps disfellowshipping for perceived rebellion like Dathan, Korah and Abiram. I believe it is not finished. When our CO comes, he will not be able to resist the platform mileage he'll get out of this. Yes, quite a bit more. Just poured out from my heart, but it's what comes in mind. Read not in good standing. A soldier all dressed up, where they take away his stripes and cut off his buttons. We are now perceived as irregular, then inactive publishers, a curse of a term when I was young. Even after operations, I'd be out knocking on doors, not because I love Jehovah, but I would otherwise wear that label, a bad JW. Yeah. Whatever you do, brothers, you must do to us, I feel, somewhere down the track. But I will have a reasonable good life if I follow Jesus' example. Even if there's no paradise for me or mine, I accept that and know that Jehovah will judge me in trueness and righteousness as all his enemies. At least I'm free now from fear, and I know I love Jehovah more than ever and have become more Christ-like. Such sad stuff. What I really believe I remember will be the Nuremberg trials. The Nazis followed orders, but they were conditioned. They had violated their consciences. Perhaps I sound corny and fake to some or off the planet, but folk that are into linear thinking and aren't able to get in touch with their feelings will not understand what I have written. But I've been on an incredible journey and have experienced things in my healing and growth. It is like I've been touched by something that's bigger than me, and I can't go back. And I can't wear the masks I once wore. I am becoming more who I really am, Marie Louise Clifford, not someone who walked in the shadow of others. Marie and I were very sad to come to the conclusion that the more we tried to be like Jesus, the more trouble we got into. I think that will be the end of this particular section, and I will do some more later. I might do one more today. My eyes are getting tired, but so thank you for listening and watching. Bye, everybody.